I'm setting myself up to have one of the best reading months of all time. Welcome or welcome back to Francesca's Books. My name is Francesca, these are my books, and here we talk about all things thriller books. And this is of course my November TBR, but we have so many exciting picks this month that I just have a good feeling. You know when you just feel a good vibe about something? You are going to see I am pulling my books out of a brown bookcase. Now friends, you are not losing your mind. I have moved my TBR downstairs. This is now a 3 bookshelf case of every book I've ever read. So anything you see behind me, you may ask my opinion on, and I will know the answer. And then downstairs I have 2 bookcases now, which is my TBR. There just wasn't really enough room, and also I felt like I was hiding away my books up here, so I decided to put some in the living room because I spend more time there probably. We digress. Here are the 8 books I'm going to read this November. This is a slightly smaller TBR than I have done in previous months, but only because I'm not really getting through them, or I'm not really excited by the end of the TBR and it's become more like a chore. And we read for fun, guys. Like, if you don't want to pick up a book, don't pick up a book. If you're reading a book and you're thinking, not for me, DNF the thing. Now it's November, I have had my fill of spooky season books for the meantime. So these are slightly less spooky and more back to like classic thrillers. I feel like in October I read a lot of like horror thrillers, which makes sense. It's October, it's Halloween, but I'm a bit like haunted housed out. So without further ado, the first book, the very first book I'm of course going to read in November, I would be delusional not to try and even pick this up, is It's Not Her by Mary Kubica. If you watch my Dallas vlog, you'll know that I had them ship this to my hotel in Dallas because you couldn't get a copy outside of the US yet. This is still an advanced copy as well. I had to jump through hoops to get this, but it is in my hands and I'm going to read it immediately. So in this, we're following our main character who goes to this lake lodge side vacation with her brother and sister-in-law and her niece and nephew. They have a nice first night, don't they always? And then when she wakes up the next day, the brother and sister-in-law have both been. Her niece is missing, nowhere to be seen, not unalive, but nowhere, and the nephew is just sound asleep. So after this, of course, she investigates. She's a one-woman band, she takes it on herself, and as always with Mary Kubica books, she then decides to throw up all the history of the town and give a huge lore as to why these characters have been unalived in the first place. If this is the first video of mine you're watching, then just know I love this author. I've read her entire backlist so far. I will leave that video in the description if you would like to go and see it and you're interested in reading more of her books, but I have no doubt this one will be fantastic. I'm hyping this up so much now. I'm honestly like, please let me love it. And then also, while we're on the topic of advanced copies, I do have a copy of Katrina Ward's next book, Nowhere Burning. I did have this on my TBR last month and just never got to it. Last month was so busy. I only ended up reading 7 or 8 books because I went on 2 work trips and I was just inundated with other stuff, so I'm kind of throwing out excuses to make myself feel better, but I'll definitely get to this one this month. So this follows a place called Nowhere House, where this famous movie star just went to go and reside in some peace after his fame. And then one day the house burnt down and a load of graves were uncovered of men who went missing and simply never went home. So a mystery unfolds, and then years and years later, now it's more of a refuge spot, like an abandoned house. I don't think this is a haunted house story. I do think this is more of a thriller at its core, but Katrina Ward does write some supernatural, so I think this is one that I'm going to go into not knowing either way, which I actually like more. The only other book I have actually read by this author was The Last House on Needless Street, which I didn't really like, honestly. Not to say that I won't like any of her other books, I've literally just read that singular book, so I really can't have an opinion on the author's writing as a whole. That's why I was also really keen to give this a go to see if it is the author or that specific book. I'm also just obsessed with the artwork of this book as well. I mean, look at this. Beautiful. So this is due for release February 2026, so I'll of course read it and let you know next month what I thought. The next book is actually a book that I'm quite embarrassed that I haven't read yet. It is The Guest List by Lucy Foley, and I've never picked this up because I wasn't a fan of the UK cover, honestly. I know that's so bad. And also I have a bit of a hit and miss relationship with Lucy Foley. So I love The Paris Apartment, really did not like The Midnight Feast, so unsure where I'm going to lie with this one. I also wanted to read this month because it's now getting colder and more in the winter seasons, and this is set in a storm at a dinner party. This is so beautiful as well. I mean, if this copy didn't convince me to read this, I don't know what will, so I obviously bought it when I was at Barnes last week. So we're following a really remote wedding dinner party, and we get the points of view from multiple people, including the bride, the +1, The Best Man, The Wedding Planner and The Bridesmaid. And it says, all have a secret, all have a motive, but only one is a murderer. One of you guys commented as well on a previous video where I was talking about this, saying that it's similar to Party of Liars, which I just read, in terms of you don't know who has been unalived. And I love that. Like, this is what I'm living for right now. So I'm sure most of you will have already read this, so let me know what you think in the comments. So next I'm going to read So Thirsty by Rachel Harrison. I've been dying to get my hands on a physical copy of this because how gorgeous is this cover? I am obsessed. I have no other words. I mean, if you don't like this cover, joke's on you. I also picked this up while I was in America because it felt like a really short copy, and you just know that means I'm more likely to pick it up, when really it just means that the pages are thinner. And I know I said I was going to go lighter on the horror thriller, but I absolutely loved Play Nice by Rachel Harrison, which I read in October. This was a 5-star plus read for me. I loved it. Before that, I'd only read The Return, which I liked but didn't love, so didn't really reach for any more of this author's work. Play Nice was wonderful, so I'm going to read So Thirsty this month. And in this we're following our female main character Sloane, whose birthday it is, and her husband surprises her with a trip, but not with him, with her best friend Naomi. And she is so happy because she knows her husband's having an affair and she doesn't really want to deal with it on her birthday weekend, understandably. But when she arrives at this sleepy little cottage, her friend is like, right, we're gonna live this weekend, so ends up going out with this group, and it gets, I'm going to say, spooky. This definitely has some horror tropes, so if you are a through and through thriller reader, then probably give this one a miss. I'm just feeling like I'm going to like it. Those of you that are subscribed to my channel will know that the next one was also on my October TBR, but a book that I'm very, very, very keen to get to and just didn't manage to last month. If you're not subscribed, then you know where the button is. We always talk everything thriller books here. It is, of course, Nobody Knows You're Here by Bryn Greenwood, and I have seen the most intensely wonderful 5-star recommendations for this from creators that I really, really trust. At the moment, I do believe this is only available in the US. They're working on getting a UK published edition, or for it to be available on UK Amazon as well. So I'll keep you updated if I hear anything. However, it just sounds so good. I could not pick it up and tell you guys about it. So in this, we're following her woman who's pretty down and out, but then she gets kidnapped. Fantastic. And when she gets to the location, she's not just been kidnapped. There's also a load of children that have been kidnapped. And even worse than that, she has to nanny for them and look after them, like completely against her will. This definitely feels like a more hard-hitting thriller, and I think that's why it's had such incredible reviews so far. It's very much a captive story, but I feel like the stakes are so much higher when there's this many children involved as well. I haven't read anything else by this author as well, so this will be a complete taste test from Bryn Greenwood, and I'm excited, even though the subject matter sounds dark. Then next is a bit of a spooky palette cleanser in November. I'm going to read A Witch's Guide to Magical Innkeeping. This is the sequel to A Very Secret Society of Irregular Witches, which I finally read in October, you'll be very pleased to know, and I loved it. It was the perfect lighter read while it's still having some like magical realism, thriller, horror elements. Conveniently, it's right here. This one was following a witch who was helping to guide some younger witches in their journey of harnessing their powers. It was very much a found family story with a little romantic subplot as well. And this book is following completely different characters, but is a similar concept. Instead, this time she has a magical inn that she has to keep. And she's also trying to reclaim some lost magic as well, which just sounds delightful, doesn't it, really? And there's also a little romantic plot. I don't know what's going on with me at the moment, you guys. So we have Luke, who is a icy historian, is the way that he is described in the synopsis, but I imagine he will come to help her in some way. There really is just a little bit of gold dust in the way this author writes, so I had to pick this up. I'm also going to read On a Quiet Street by Serafina Novaglass. I haven't read anything by this author before, despite having bought some of her other books last year. I've just never got to it. This one seems like her most popular. That's why I'm going to give this one a read first. They're quite short books as well, so I don't know why I've never really taste tested for this author, but this one specifically does sound very interesting. It sounds very domestic rich people drama, which is of course what I love. So we're following a woman who thinks her husband is cheating and she just needs to catch him in the act. Kind of giving It's Not All You Think by Claire McIntosh from the opening, but I imagine they'll be very different. And then we have another character who tragically lost her son in a hit and run last year and is trying to prove what actually happened. So these two women team up to try and give these men some of what they deserve. So this feels very classic psychological thriller, very high suspense, very domestic setting. And then the final book that I'm going to read, I told you this was quite a short TBR this month, so maybe I'll get to a few more. If there's any books that I've been bought recently or have been yapping on about recently that you think I need to read, please let me know. But I'm also going to read Those Empty Eyes by Charlie Donnelly. This is an author that I've recently found and just immediately become obsessed with. I read The Girl Who Was Taken earlier this year and I just haven't stopped yapping about him since. They're always extremely well written and give you a layered, complex character at its crux and different parts of a story that will only come together at the end. I know it sounds like I'm describing every psychological thriller ever, but this author just does it in a way that really just makes you like sit down and take stock of what's going on. But I would recommend with any Charlie Donnelly book that you give at least the first 50 or 100 pages a go in one sitting, so you have your head like round the characters. I don't think you can dip in and out of these as easily as some other authors, but in a great way, almost. So at the base of this story, we have a woman who is effectively a final girl. Her entire family were massacred and she was labelled by the media as a killer and somebody who obviously had done the unalivings. And years later, she's like got a new identity and she's just trying to live her life. But alongside that, of course, she hasn't stopped looking for the people who did this to her family. As I say, there's always way more to Charlie Donnelly's books than meets the eye. So while that's like the concept at its base, there will be so many more layers to this, I know. So those are the 8 books I'm going to read in November. Let me know what you guys are going to be reading this month and I cannot wait to see you next time.